On this episode, we discuss the recent spate of badly behaved foreigners in Thailand and what particular issues make Thais lose their minds.
So if you've ever wondered what behavior is over the line in Thailand, you'll love this episode of the Bangkok Podcast.
Sawadee krap, and welcome to the Bangkok Podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, a Canadian who came to Thailand in 2001 to make a Planet of the Apes sequel, filmed entirely with the monkeys and Krabi, but never pulled it off because they turned down my application to install a Statue of Liberty replica on Ao Nang.
I think that would have been a good movie.
I think so too. It would have been pretty good.
And I'm Ed Knuth, an American who came to Thailand on a one-year teaching contract 23 years ago, fell in love with the Thai seasons. Hot, hotter, and hot and wet. So I never left.
I thought that was a documentary on Thailand, that old movie Hot, Wet Summer.
That's right. That's about right. Well, it's funny. I mean, I've got a buddy visiting now, and he was asking me about the Thai seasons. He's like, when's the cool season? When's the hot season? I'm like, dude, it's just hot and hotter. Like that's, there's no cool season.
This summer is apparently going to be real bad. They said it's going to get up to 50 degrees, like the heat index at some point.
It's been hot this last week, dude.
Yeah. I was out walking today, and I've kind of lost all interest in trying to mop my brow. Now when I'm out walking, I'm just like, yeah, I'm covered in sweat. It's dripping off my nose, down my eyebrows. I don't care.
Just let it fly, dude. Let it fly.
That's right. I'm not trying to impress any young ladies anymore.
All right. We want to give a big thanks to all of our patrons who support the show. Patrons get every episode a day early, behind-the-scenes photos of our interviews, a heads up to send questions to upcoming guests, and access to our Discord server to chat with me, Greg, and other listeners around the world. But best of all, patrons also get an unscripted, uncensored bonus episode every week where we riff on current events and Bangkok topics. On this week's bonus show, we chatted about a Reddit thread that asked what Bangkok restaurant you'd send someone to if you didn't like them very much, the question of how many Thais are actually really vegetarian and vegan, given how much meat is in the Thai diet, and an update on my goal of making new friends at the gym, and a recommendation to everyone to visit the small but charming Talat Noi Museum, which just opened last week. To learn how to become a patron and get all this good stuff, plus full access to over 700 bonus and regular back episodes, click the support button at the top of our website.
That's right. As always, if you have a comment, show idea, or just want to say hi, hit bangkokpodcast.com and click the little microphone button on the bottom right to leave us a voicemail that will play on the show, like we will at the end of this show. All right. Well, in this episode, we are going to dive into an area that we definitely don't have a definitive answer to, but it is something that we seem to be seeing a lot more of lately, and that is when a story about a badly behaved foreigner crosses the line from interesting to full-on viral front-page mega story that provokes an intense emotional response from Thais. Now, of course, we're going to start with a case of the Swiss guy who kicked the woman on the stairs in Phuket, but it got us wondering what exactly makes an issue boil over. Is it simple patriotism or even nationalism, pent-up anger against a certain group, rumors and fake news, mob rule, or just an inexplicable undercurrent that just happens to, for whatever reason, catch the wind and blow up into a national news story? So, Ed, we were talking about this before the show, and you are the academic amongst us, so you have a bit more insight into how these things are defined and categorized. So it was interesting to me to hear what you have to say about this. What do you think of these kind of stories?
Well, first off, I actually think it's a tricky question because part of this question is just what goes viral and what doesn't. In this case, these are kind of memes and stories about foreigners acting badly. But the tricky thing is foreigners act badly all the time. You know, before the show, I was joking with you that, you know, every night of the week, some German guy gets drunk and naked and runs down the street in Pattaya. You know,
right, I'm talking to you, large European lady I saw walking down the street in a tiny red bikini the other day. Not cool.
That's right. You know, foreigners do bad stuff all the time, and it's just par for the course, and it doesn't go viral or become a meme. So, you know, my background is in, you know, political science, but there's probably someone who studies social media and virology the like virality, or I don't know what the right field would be, like social media explosions to try to figure out what makes something go viral. So I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I personally, I'm not sure I would call these types of things nationalism. I guess in some ways it is, because it's Thai people setting boundaries about what they will allow foreigners to get away with. So maybe that's a type of nationalism. I mean, to me, nationalism is more about being aggressive or arrogant in the IR system. So if a Thai person was acting superior to, let's say, Cambodia or Laos or Burma, to me that's what I call nationalism. When you basically act like my country's better than yours, but when Thais are just kind of regulating the behavior of foreigners inside Thailand, I mean, to me that's just sociology. But so to me it's not really nationalism. But I do think it's an interesting question for us to try to figure out what are the lines. Like how do we make sure that this doesn't happen to us?
Well, for a little bit of background here, in case you don't know about this, and we usually try to avoid doing topics that peg a story in a certain frame of time. So we're recording this on March 9th. So obviously this is going to be pegged to this news story. But what happened a week or so ago is this guy in Phuket, this Swiss guy named David. He had some stairs that went down onto a beach outside of his house, and he saw a woman sitting on them, and he went out and kicked her in the back.
It's a very weird story. The best I can make it is that these stairs were stairs that people had hung out on these stairs before, and he had previously like shooed them away, and it's like his property. He didn't want people sitting on the stairs. And then he saw a woman sitting on the stairs, and he thought it was the same person he previously had shooed away. And he came up with a really dumb idea, which was, because I think he filmed himself. So he came up with this dumb idea of he was going to film himself tripping over her, as in demonstrating that she was blocking the path.
I see.
That was his original really dumb idea. And so he's actually filmed himself stumbling over her, but it was very awkward, and he essentially did more or less kick her in the back. He kind of fell over her.
Right.
And he's trying to prove the point that she's in the way. But obviously, if you film yourself intentionally falling over someone, then it's just, the whole thing is a bad idea. And the guy clearly is like the bad actor. Like, you can't defend the guy. But
yeah, it was obviously a dickhead move, and there's no defending that.
Dick move, no doubt about it. But the question is, does he deserve the reaction to it?
Right, because it blew up, man. Like, it started as like, I didn't even consider really news. I heard about it. I'm like, oh, another foreigner being a jerk.
Right.
And then it was like there was a demonstration in front of his house by a group of people, and then the police got involved, and they found out that he had a previous inciting for road rage, and then the immigration got involved, and
that's right.
He held a press conference, and
they found out that the steps to his condo actually were encroaching on the beach. So
they demolished them.
So they demolished the steps that he was shooing the lady away from. And then now they found something wrong with his visa. Like, they canceled his visa for what?
Well, yeah, I don't know, but that's the thing. That's what we're going to talk about, is like, how far is too far? Is this an overreaction, or is it totally warranted? Like, obviously he's a violent guy.
Yeah, there's no defending what he did. It's just a question of, does the punishment fit the crime? And to be honest, I don't know the Thai law on what you have to do to get your visa revoked. I mean, maybe this is technically assault. So I think in the States it would be assault and battery. I mean, he obviously didn't accidentally fall over the woman. He kind of intentionally ran into her. So it probably would count as assault and battery, which I think normally it would be a misdemeanor, but if it's a felony, that's a serious crime. And so maybe under Thai law, if you're guilty of assault and battery, they can pull your visa.
Right. But for whatever reason, it blew up, and it was everyone knows this guy.
That's right.
Swiss David, they call him. So it just became this major story. For what reason? That's what we're going to talk about. And I was sort of saying to Ed earlier, like, well, these kind of stories seem to me to reek of a little bit of nationalism. And you just described that maybe it's a bit more nuanced than that. Because there's, like you said, there's fights between foreigners and Thai people all the time.
That's right.
Foreigners acting badly and being abusive and yelling and screaming. But what makes it become this major story?
I'm not sure what it is. One of our friends was speculating that maybe it was because he kicked her and like used his feet. Thai people are very sensitive about being touched by other people's feet.
They
so maybe,
are, yeah.
Maybe that has something to do with it. I also think that in this case, maybe the kind of stuff that Thai people let slide involve late night drunkenness, and Thai people just know that there's a lot of foreigners in Thailand who are here to party. They know that places like Pattaya have a lot of this type of bad behavior, Khao San Road drunkenness. And so they've become kind of inured to this type of thing. Late night shenanigans among drunk, like it's normally drunk guys doing stupid stuff.
Right.
But in this case, the guy was sober, and it was kind of intentional on his part, even though I think he meant it to be an accident. It obviously wasn't. So this is a guy basically just kicking a Thai person sitting on the stairs. And it turns out the Thai person also happened to be a doctor. So maybe also her status had something to do with it. That's what I was thinking.
That's another thing, isn't it? Because doctors are held in very high esteem in Asian cultures.
That's right. Now, he apparently, the guy apologized, and he said he thought it was a previous person he had kind of kicked off the stairs. So he did his best to apologize, and why over and over again. But I think he's toast.
There was another interesting wrinkle to it too, and I saw someone comment on it because the press conference he held where he did why, he looked like a bum. He was wearing like this ratty old black T-shirt.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't see it.
He obviously didn't like specially prepare for this, and it just reminds me of when you go to immigration. There's that sign on the wall reminding you to dress appropriately, dress politely, and maybe part of it was an image problem too. Like if you're going to be offering the sincere apology, maybe don't come in the T-shirt you used to mow the lawn.
Well, I can tell you one mistake this guy made for sure is that he did not listen to the Bangkok podcast, because had he been a listener of our show, he would know that he probably would get a sense of what upsets Thai people. But when it's time to act polite, you have to come correct. Like you said, you have to look proper and act proper. Thai people really appreciate the appearance of cleanliness, politeness, and correct behavior. So, if I ever, hopefully, propriety, that's it. So, hopefully I'm never in this situation. But if I am and I want to stay in Thailand, like I will definitely, get my behavior correct and be polite and do my best possible why. What else can you do?
I think our friend Kramer from Seinfeld sums it up perfectly from the episode where he's coaching a Miss America contestant in Las Vegas, and he has that line about poise.
Kramer, are these questions really that important?
Yes, they're important. If you stumble, if you hesitate, you can kiss the crown goodbye. Now, if I told you once, I've told you 1,000 times. Poise counts. It's just as important as the others. Swimsuit, evening wear, talent, poise.
But I started to think about like what were the similar stories in the past years where something just inexplicably became major news that maybe other things didn't. And I thought of a couple. The most recent one was, this happened actually after David's kick, was the ladyboy fight between the group of Thai ladyboys and the Filipino ladyboys.
Yeah, this was also pretty crazy news. My students were actually making jokes about it. It was another national news story. So listeners, if you didn't hear about this, it was actually fairly crazy. Like I was actually a bit surprised. So do you know what the instigating incident was? Like what caused the initial conflict? Do you know?
I think these women were pros, and there was a bit of a turf war. Someone was out in a hotel where they shouldn't have been, and someone threw something, and then it just went on from there.
Well, it actually was fairly vicious. Essentially, it was a group of Thai ladyboys that got into kind of a street fight with a group of Filipino ladyboys, and some of the Filipino ladyboys were arrested. But what happened is a huge crowd of Thais, I don't know if they're all ladyboys or not, they waited outside the police station, and the police didn't understand what was going on, and they released the Filipino ladyboys, and they got jumped right outside the police station. It's like the ladyboys didn't care at all. And the Thai cops, there's a ton of Thai cops there, like right in the middle of the melee.
Yeah, they're like trying to break apart. These fists are flying and shoes are being whipped across the crowd.
Coming off.
Purses are flying.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing, and
it's insane.
I guess in this case, and maybe this, I guess to me, maybe this is nationalism because it's Thai lady boys saying, "Hey, this is like our turf," So to me, I guess maybe maybe you could call this nationalism. But I don't know exactly what the Filipino ladyboys did. I don't know.
Well,
maybe it was just turf. Maybe it was just turf. I'm not sure.
Well, the funny thing about how this resolved is apparently like the next day it was sort of like, all right, we've talked and everything's cool. But the Thai ladyboys are now sort of seen as kind of heroes. And they were actually, I saw a clip of them being filmed on there's like some famous TV show. I'm not sure what it was.
Oh, really?
But it was filming them and there was a group of them and the cameraman was filming them and he was walking backwards and they were like chasing the camera and like fighting and kicking.
Oh, that's
and being
hilarious.
really vicious and stuff like that.
Like they're defending. Okay, so this is kind of nationalism. They're defending Thailand from those horrible Filipino ladyboys.
Right. So that was very recently. And then, of course, I thought about the stuff around My Mate Nate, which was a year or two ago.
Right.
And if you don't know, listeners, the My Mate Nate is this quite well-known Thai-speaking foreign YouTuber. I don't even know if he's around anymore. I never watched his stuff. I assume he is. But he was going around a while ago asking sort of really kind of juvenile and offensively stupid questions to Thai people on the street in English and then kind of laughing at them when they didn't know the correct answers. Like he would ask girls about their periods and things like that. So kind of distasteful stuff. And it blew up. Like it was really controversial and he was called into the police station and it eventually died down. But this sort of is a similar thing where
basically he was just rude.
Yeah. Something fairly innocuous became a really, really big issue.
You've always said that, as a foreigner in Thailand, we kind of represent our countries.
Right.
I don't see it exactly that way. But the truth is the Thai people are just going to group us together. They are. Yeah. So it's like when one white guy does this horrible thing and kicks a woman in the back, it does unfortunately just kind of make us all look bad, even though that doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Now, the thing about this Swiss David guy was that a couple of days later, did you hear about that other Swiss guy who beat up that old lady in a grocery store?
Oh, no, I didn't hear about this either.
Yeah. Like this other Swiss guy just wailed on this old lady, broke her nose, put her in the hospital. And the last I heard, which was a couple of days ago, he's in jail, but he's refusing to cooperate. He won't sign anything. He won't talk to the police. He won't accept bail. He's being really stubborn. And my first response is like, what the hell's going on with the Swiss guys? So
right, yeah, that's weird too. Yeah, right. Yeah, I have no idea.
I can see how that's a natural inclination and a question to ask for Thai people. Like, hey, what's up with X? X being Americans, Canadians, foreigners.
Well, to me, it's a tricky subject. As I've said many times on the show, I am a rule of law guy, and it basically means, and that basically just means that there are Thai laws and everyone has to follow them. Thai people have to follow them. Foreigners have to follow them. And if a Thai person breaks the law, I don't think less of Thai people in general. I think less of the Thai person who broke the law. If a foreigner breaks the law, Thai people should not think less of foreigners. They should not. They should think less of that foreigner. But I guess the but is, I know humans are humans and we have kind of a tribal instinct. To me, it's not right. Like you shouldn't blame all foreigners for the bad acts of a few of them.
No, I totally agree.
It's a dangerous thing. It can lead to xenophobia and anti-immigrant sentiment.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think my stance is that we do have to take into account the unfairness of the court of public opinion. And for whatever reason, we are the other. We are different, and we're under a greater level of scrutiny because of that. And you might agree with that or not, whatever, but that's just the way things are. So whenever there's a conflict or there's an issue that has the potential to go south, we have the opportunity to make things look right and say, hey, it might not be, it might only be implied, but hey, I'm a foreigner and I handled this really well. That's how I think of it. But if you handle it badly, it's easy for people just to go, oh, well, that's another foreigner being.
I mean, there's a couple obvious guidelines. And, one is obviously don't be violent or aggressively violent with Thai people. Sure. Thai people tend to tolerate foreigners who get violent with each other. But obviously aggressive with Thai people, that's going to be handled in a different way. And then the other thing is just to remember that Thai people are more conservative in public than most Western countries, and the standards for propriety in public are higher. So we've recently talked about stories of foreigners, wearing bikinis close to temples,
Sure.
and then asking rude questions of women on the street. I mean, my mate Nate, like some of his questions would have probably been improper in the West, but it's just like I said, the standards are just higher here for what's proper in public. So to me, those are the two obvious guidelines. I mean, if you're not violent and then you don't say rude stuff, then you're mostly pretty safe here.
Right. But when you cross the line into religion,
The big M.
Yeah, exactly. God help you if you go there. Or into even things, like we've into politics too. It's very easy to get the knee jerk reaction of you're a foreigner, you have no business to, having a position on this.
Correct. Yeah.
I remember former guest, U.S. Ambassador Kristie Kenney, when she had protesters outside of her office with, her head with blood around it on a stick because she urged Thailand to stick to the rule of democracy and things like that. So once you stray over these certain lines, it can sort of touch a nerve. Now, the one big thing for me, the one biggest issue that this sort of I think about whenever we talk about something like this was something that we did an entire episode on back on season 3, episode 66. And if you haven't heard that, I urge you to go and listen to it because it is a hell of a story. And
No, it was a great story.
Thai soap opera riots. And in the early 2000s, there was a Thai actress who I believe the story goes she was in character on screen saying that Thailand owned Angkor Wat, Cambodia's national treasure.
Correct.
And things blew up. Like there was riots in Siem Reap. They lit the Thai embassy on fire. The Cambodians recalled their ambassador. The Thais recalled their ambassador. Some Thais had to be evacuated from Cambodia. It's a crazy story. All because this actress said this thing about, Thailand really owns this. So that's a case where they tread on something religious, something historical, something cultural. So it was.
That's right. And I think a lot of that, so to me, that is Cambodian nationalism. It is. But to me, it has to do with the particular history between Cambodia and Thailand. So it's like that's not a generically bad thing, like asking women rude questions on the street, which is just kind of generically bad. Like I think those soap opera riots in Cambodia, just it touched a Cambodian nerve, which has to do with the way they were treated during an age of Siam imperialism. But it does show that people will explode. Like this is you and I were talking about this before the show. Thai people, I really feel Thai people in general are hard to offend. Like I would be much more careful in the States what I said to people. The way things are in the West now is just people, it seems like it's almost like an offense Olympics. Like who can be more offended? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
And so I would, like as a professor in the States, I'd have to be much more careful for what I said than what I say in Thailand. So in general, I feel like Thai people are difficult to offend. But I think all these stories kind of show that everybody has limits and Thai people have their limits. And in certain things might seem small to you, but if someone catches it on a cell phone and it goes up to social media, it might become a national news story. Like your dumb, silly mistake you made, it might become a national news story.
It might be the end of your time in Thailand, like this David guy found out, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I'm curious to find out the legal issue, like how his visa got revoked. They might have just found out there was some other problem with his status. I'm not sure. Maybe I'll do some research and maybe we'll do a follow-up next week on the bonus show.
Maybe, yeah. So, I guess the takeaways is just be educate yourself on the cultural expectations of this. Control your anger. I've been guilty of it before, the angry farang, and I'm just been glad. There's a couple of times I'm glad that no one was filming me when I started yelling at someone or something, because it definitely would have made me look like an ass.
Right.
Just be careful, I think. And that again goes back to my stance that we are all under greater scrutiny, and we need to be aware that we're being watched, and we have a role to play.
Well, I think we're definitely under greater scrutiny, and I think that if unfortunately, like I don't think it's right, but like when you behave badly, it does make other foreigners look bad, and then I think I think there are at least some Thai people who will start blaming foreigners, which is which is not right, but I think it's a kind of a normal thing for people to do. Like in my opinion, I think expats, I think we behave pretty well. Like usually when I read about foreigners doing horrible stuff, it's tourists, like tourists just coming here to party. Like to me, that's the most common type of misbehavior, like drunken mishaps.
Frat boy idiots.
Exactly right. I think that's the typical thing. So I'm curious what Thai people think if they group tourists and expats differently. Do you think they do?
I don't know. That's a really good question.
To me, there's a big difference, but that's because I'm in one camp. Like I'm really not a tourist, and I don't like it when Thai people talk to me thinking that I'm a tourist or assuming I'm a tourist. I don't like that.
Well, this goes back to another discussion we had on a previous show several months back about whether Thais should expect a Y from a foreigner or whether a foreigner should expect a Y from a Thai if you've lived here for a certain amount of time, and how you get that across first. Like before you decide on whether to Y me or not, just understand that I've lived here for 23 years and I
That's right. That's right. Right.
Anyway, behave, control your temper. Keep in mind, you're probably on camera all the time from somewhere. So be aware.
Good thing to be aware of just in the age of social media. And then just never forget you're in Thailand, and even if you're here legally, you are a type of guest.
Exactly. And if you are going to go out and do something violent, don't be a knobber like this Swiss guy and film yourself doing it.
True that.
All right. We ask our listeners to send us a voicemail using a little microphone button on our website if they have something to say. And this week we heard from our buddy Francesco. Francesco, take it away.
Hey, Greg. This is Francesco. I'm a listener to your podcast. I've been in Thailand twice. I'm probably coming back this December. Was just want to comment on that comment that you guys did about the Michelin star restaurant. I basically decided not to go to the restaurant because it was too expensive, around $100 or so. Well, I was thinking, being a chef, and I've been also in Michelin star restaurants in Bangkok. I remember Axon being an especially good one. It's really not just food in a way. To me, I see it as one of those restaurants as an experience. So if you think about it, what you would spend for a concert or what you would spend for a theater performance or a special event, you probably would go close to that amount of money. And so try to see that type of restaurant also as an experience, not just like a meal, not just like I'm going to feed my belly and walk out of the place. It's the experience, it's the service, it's the ambience, it's the type of food that you get that you might not get anywhere else. And Michelin star restaurant, yes, they can be expensive, but it's the same. In other parts of the world, that actually in Bangkok, to me, they seem to be a little cheaper than other places. So just to give you a different perspective. And thanks again for your podcast. I listen every week, and it's fantastic. Bye.
Hey, thanks for that, Francesco. I think there is some truth to what you're saying. I think I mentioned this on the bonus show. We talked about it. Sometimes you just want to be in a fancy place. You want that feeling of class. You want like an overall like nice experience. But I don't know, man. The numbers that you were talking about to me are still too high.
Yeah, and just to recap on our bonus show, we talked about this. Last week, I was invited to go to a Michelin restaurant with some friends, and it was going to be 3,000 baht per person, which in the West is not much. In Bangkok, it's a lot of money for a lot of people. And Francesco, yeah, thanks for sending us that voicemail, my friend. But I gotta say, like, if I was sitting on a rooftop, or if there was like dry ice smoke on the floor and they were playing Metallica or something awesome like that, sure. But this was just a regular run-of-the-mill restaurant. Service was okay, pretty good.
Right.
But I got to say, there was nothing special about it. And ultimately, my takeaway from it was it just was not worth it. There was nothing special about it.
Sure.
The food was good, but it wasn't mind-blowing. And I just don't think it was worth it in a city where you can go and find excellent street food almost anywhere for a couple of $100 baht. So
for sure. Well, you and I are just middle class dudes, and so
Yeah.
For me, I can eat so well for 300 or 400 baht that it would have to be really special for me to be paying thousands of baht. It'd have to be a special occasion, like a wedding or something.
Exactly. That's a really good way to put it. I can eat really well for X. So for me to pay 10X, it's got to earn that.
I'm with you.
But I think this is just a good invitation for Francesco to cook for us next time he comes to Bangkok.
Heck yeah.
Hey, Francesco, my mind is always willing to be changed and opened,
That's right.
Cook
But
me a
anyway,
meal
thanks for the voicemail.
Yeah, that was great. Thanks, Francesco.
Okay, a final thanks to our patrons who support the show. Patrons get a ton of cool perks and the warm, fuzzy feeling knowing that they're helping in our never-ending quest for cool content. Find out more by clicking support on our website. And connect with us online. We're Bangkok Podcast on social media, bangkokpodcast.com on the web, or simply bangkokpodcast@gmail.com. We love hearing from our listeners and always reply to our messages.
Yeah, baby. You can also listen to each episode on YouTube. You can send us a voicemail like Francesco did through our website that will feature on the show. Hit me up on Threads at BKKGreg. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take it easy out there. Stay cool. It's hot this week in Thailand. I'll see you back here next week.
For sure.